back again, students, to another video lesson. So, bago mo panoorin tong particular video lesson na to, make sure na napanood mo na yung unang video lesson ko, which is the nature of the roots of a quadratic equation using discriminant. So, yung link nun is nasa description. Yun lang. For lesson objectives, describe the relationship between the coefficients and the roots of a quadratic equation. So, madidescribe lang natin yung relationship na yon by finding the sum and the product of the roots of a quadratic equation. Next, write the quadratic equation in standard form given the roots. So, in our previous discussion, ang kinukuha natin is yung roots given yung equation. Okay, in here naman, kukunin natin or hahanapin natin yung quadratic equation in standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0 na given yung ating mga roots. So let's have short activity number 1 before we proceed to our discussion. Perform the indicated operation. So napaka-basic ng ating activity na to. Since ang ating lesson nga has something to do with sum and product, so, ang ating review for our first activity natin, mag-a-add tayo and magmumultiply tayo ng mga integers. For example, number 1, 5 plus negative 18. So, if we apply the rules in adding unlike signs, so, isusubtract natin yung dalawang number na to. And then, we follow the sign of the bigger value. So, that is 18 minus 5. That is 13. And then, follow the sign of the bigger value, yung negative 18. So, ang sagot, negative 13. Next, negative 2 plus negative 25. So, yung rule naman, kapag like signs sila, add lang natin yung number and then copy the sign. So, 2 plus 25, that is 27. And then, we copy negative. Next, negative 14 times 5. So, yung rule naman natin in multiplying integers with unlike signs, ang susundan na sign is negative. And then, kapag naman like signs sila, positive, positive, negative, negative, magiging positive ang resulting sign. So, negative 14 times 5, that is negative 70. And then, negative 9 times negative 16, that will become 144. Next, for number 5, negative 3/5 plus 1/4. And then number 6, 4 over 9 times 3 over 8. So, ano ba ang process natin kapag nag-add tayo ng fractions or nag-add tayo ng rational numbers? Okay, so in here, kailangan natin kunin yung LCD. Okay, the least common denominator of 5 and 4. And that is 20. Okay, so ang mangyayari, 20 plus ayan, yung may 20. And then, ang process niya, 20 divided by 5, that is 4, times negative 3, that is negative 12. Next, 20 divided by 4, that is 5 times 1, 5. Now, we combine negative 12 plus 5 over 20. So, what is negative 12 plus 5? So, negative 7 over 20. So, this is our final answer. Now, when we multiply fractions, so pwede tayo mag-cross multiply and then para mai-cancel yung mga may common factor. Okay, like for example, so sulat ulit natin, 49 times 3 over 8. So magka-cross multiply tayo. So we can cancel out 4 and 8 because the common factor of these two numbers is 4. So 4 divided by 4, 1. And then 8 divided by 4, that is 2. Same with 3 and 9. So the common factor is 3. So 3 divided by 3, that is 1. And then 9 divided by 3, that is 3. And then we multiply. So dito sa numerator, 1 times 1, that is 1. And then sa denominator, 3 times 2, that is 6. So our final answer is 1 over 6. Short activity number 2. Find the roots of the following quadratic equations using the indicated method. So, to refresh you with the methods in solving quadratic equations, we have extracting the square roots, factoring, completing the square and the quadratic formula. So for our first example, x squared minus 64 is equal to 0. So by extracting the square roots. So ang gagawin lang natin, x squared, and then itong negative 64 kailangan ma-move sa right side. So matanggal siya sa left side. So we add 64 to both sides. So x squared, and then negative 64 plus 64, that is 0. And then 0 plus 64, that is 64. And then we extract the square root of both sides. Okay? So bakit tayo nag-extract ng square root? Para matanggal yung exponent na 2. The square root of x squared, that is x. And then the square root of 64 is positive negative 8. So yung roots ng ating given equation ay positive negative 8. So let's have example number 2. 2x squared plus 5x minus 12 is equal to 0 using factoring. So we will use the AC method wherein i-multiply natin yung numerical coefficient ng x squared dun sa constant term. So that is 2 times negative 12. And 2 times negative 12 is equal to negative 24. Now, ano yung mga factors ng negative 24 na kapag pinag-add natin, lilitaw yung coefficient ng x, which is 5. So that is 8 and negative 3. And then, isusulat natin sila ng ganito, x plus 8 times x minus 3 is equal to 0. And then, i-divide natin yung mga nakuha nating factors dun sa numerical coefficient ng 2. So, why do we need to divide them by 2? Kasi po, yung numerical coefficient ng given equation is not equal to 1. Kapag equal to 1, we don't need to divide. So, that is 8 divided by 2, x plus 4. And then, 3 divided by 2, we cannot divide without remainder. So, yung 2, sulat lang natin sa tabi ng x. That is 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. Now, we equate each term to 0. So, magiging x plus 4 is equal to 0. Yung isa naman, 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. Next. So, the value of x sub 1 is negative 4. And then, the value of x sub 2, magiging ganito siya. 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. And then, 2x equals 3. Dividing the whole equation by 2. So, x sub 2 is equal to 3 over 2. So, the roots of the given equation are negative 4 and 3 over 2. This example, x squared plus 2x minus 63 is equal to 0 using completing the square. So, ang gagawin natin, rewrite muna natin yung equation. And then, itong negative 63, kailangan mailipat sa right side. So, ang gagawin natin, mag-a-add tayo ng 63 to both sides. And then, x squared plus 2x is equal to 63. And then, what must be added to x squared plus 2x to make it a perfect square trinomial? So, ang process ng pagkuha nun, yung ating constant term, yung 2, yung coefficient ng x, i-divide natin sa 2. And then, yung nakuha nating sagot doon, i-square natin. So, that is 2 divided by 2, 1. And then, 1 squared, that is 1. So, therefore, x squared plus 2x plus 1. And then, yung in-add natin na 1, i-add natin sa right side. Ganun yun. And then, i-express natin yung x squared plus 2x plus 1 as square of binomial na magiging the quantity of x plus 1 squared is equal to 64. And then, i-extract natin yung square root ng both sides para matanggal yung power na 2. Okay? So, magiging x plus 1 is equal to positive negative 8. Okay? And then, x sub 1 will be 8 minus 1. So, bakit minus 1? Itong 1 kasi na to, kailangan natin siyang ilipat sa right side. So, magiging negative siya. So, x sub 1 is 7. And then x sub 2 is equal to negative 8 minus 1. So, x sub 2 is equal to negative 9. Finally, x squared plus 8x plus 3 is equal to 0. Okay, so using quadratic formula, so let's identify the value of a, b, and c. A is 1, b is 8, and then c equals 3. And then we apply quadratic formula. X is equal to negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Then the value of b, negative 8 plus minus the square root of b squared, that is 8 squared minus 4 times the value of a, 1, and then the value of c, 3. Next, all over 2 times the value of a again, 1. Negative 8 plus minus the square root of 8 squared, that is 64, minus 4 times 1, 4, times 3, 12. All over 2. So we rewrite negative 8 plus minus the square root of 64 minus 12, that is 52. All over 2. And then, pwede nating extract ang square root ng 52 kasi meron siyang factor na perfect square, which is 4. So magiging ganito siya, 4 times 13. And then, negative 8 plus minus the square root of 4, that is 2, square root of 13 all over 2. Next, for our x sub 1, magiging negative 8 plus 2 square root of 13 all over 2. And then, pwede nating i-divide yung negative 8 sa 2, tsaka yung 2 square root of 13 sa 2. O pwede rin naman natin siyang i-factor. So, kapag dinivide natin ang negative 8 sa 2, magiging negative 4. And then, ang 2 square root of 13 sa 2, magiging square root of 13 lang. And then, yung isa, x sub 2, magiging negative 8 minus 2 square root of 13 all over 2. And then, ang sagot, negative 4 minus the square root of 13. So, yan ang ating mga nakuwang roots. Sum and product of roots of a quadratic equation. If the roots of a quadratic equation are x sub 1 and x sub 2, then x sub 1 plus x sub 2 is equal to negative b over a. Ito yung sa sum. And then, x sub 1 times x sub 2 is equal to c over a dun sa product of roots naman. So, yung a, b, and c na nakikita nyo dyan, yun yung mga numerical coefficients ng given quadratic equation. So, make sure that the quadratic equation is written in standard form para makuha nyo yung sum and product ng mga roots. So, let's have example number 1. Find the sum and the product of the roots of x squared plus 5x plus 4 is equal to 0. So, as you can see, yung ating given quadratic equation ay nakasulat sa standard form. So, the first thing we need to do is to identify the value of a, b, and c. So, the value of a is 1, b is 5, and then c equals 4. Next, so yung formula ng pagkuha ng sum ng roots ng quadratic equation ay x sub 1 plus x sub 2 is equal to negative b over a. So, ang value ng b natin ay 5, so magiging negative 5 over ang value ng a natin is 1. So, negative 5 divided by 1, that is negative 5. So, ang sum ng roots natin ay negative 5. Kapag product naman, c over a. So, c is 4, and then again, the value of a is 1. So the product of the roots of the given equation is 4. So for our next example, determine the sum and the product of the roots of the quadratic equation 2x squared minus 9x plus 36 is equal to 0. So we identify the values of a, b, and c. A is 2, b is equal to negative 9, and then c is equal to 36. And then x sub 1 plus x sub 2 is equal to negative b over a. So as you can see, yung ating b, ang value niya ay negative 9. And then dito sa formula natin, negative b. So kapag ganon, negative, negative, parang double negative, magiging positive. So that is negative tapos negative 9 over 2. So the value of the sum of the roots of the given equation is 9 over 2. Next, for the product naman, x sub 1 times x sub 2 is equal to c over a. So that is 36 over 2 equals 18. So kung gusto nyong i-check kung 9 over 2 nga yung sum ng roots and then yung product ay 18, pwede nyong kunin yung mga roots ng given equation natin. Okay. So that's the only key para malaman kung tama yung ating sum and product na nakuha. So solve for the sum and the product of the roots of the quadratic equation 4x squared plus 12x minus 15 is equal to 0. So a is 4, b is 12, and then c is negative 15. So sum muna, negative b over a. So negative 12 over 4. So, negative 12 divided by 4, that is negative 3. So, yung sum ng mga roots ng given equation is negative 3. While, for the product, x sub 1 times x sub 2 is equal to c over a. That is c, negative 15, and then yung a, 4. So, ang sagot natin dito is negative 15 over 4. Next, writing the quadratic equation in standard form given the roots. So on our previous video lessons, so napag-aralan natin yung pagkuha ng roots given the quadratic equation using the four methods. So dito naman, baligtad. Okay, so nakabigay yung mga roots and then hahanapin natin yung quadratic equation. And then we should write the quadratic equation in standard form. Ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So there are two different ways in determining the quadratic equation given the roots. So the first method, write the roots in the form of the quantity of x minus a times the quantity of x minus b is equal to 0. And then we apply FOIL method. And then the second one, apply the sum and the product of the roots of the quadratic equation, yung kaninang diniscuss ko sa inyo. So let's have example number 1 using the first method. Find the quadratic equation whose roots are 2 and 7. So according to the first method, kailangan nating isulat yung given roots in the form of x minus a times x minus b is equal to 0. So, and then, we apply FOIL method. So, una muna, i-substitute natin yung 2 and 7 in place of a and b. So, x minus 2 times x minus 7 is equal to 0. And then, we apply FOIL method, first, outer, inner, last. So, rewrite lang natin. So, first muna, x times x, that is x squared. Again, kapag product rule ng law of exponents, ina-add yung mga exponents. So, that is 1 plus 1, 2. And then, for outer terms naman, x times negative 7, that is negative 7x. And then, yung inner, 2 times x, or negative 2 times x, that is negative 2x. And then, the two last terms, negative 2 times negative 7, that is positive 14, is equal to 0. And then we combine like terms, negative 7x and negative 2x. That is x squared minus 9x plus 14 is equal to 0. So this will be our final answer. As you can see, nakasulat siya in standard form. So using method 2, yung sum and products ng roots ng quadratic equation. So una muna sum, x sub 1 plus x sub 2 is equal to negative b over a. So i-add natin yung given roots. 2 plus 7 is equal to 9. And then, since yung formula natin is negative b over a, magiging negative 9. Next, yung product naman nila, x sub 1 times x sub 2 is equal to c over a. So, i-multiply naman natin yung roots. 2 times 7 is equal to 14. Now, let's identify the values of a, b, and c. So, a is 1. So, paano naging 1? Kasi po, yung denominator ng negative 9 and 14 ay 1. So, na hindi naman natin kailangan isulat na negative 9 over 1 o kaya 14 over 1. So, understood na 1 yung denominator. And then, yung b naman natin is negative 9 and then c is 14. And then, kapag sinulat natin yung quadratic equation in standard form, magiging ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So, isa-substitute lang natin ngayon yung mga value ng a, b, and c dun sa standard form ng quadratic equation. So, ax squared magiging x squared lang. And then, yung b is negative 9, kaya minus 9x. And then, yung c, 14. So, plus 14 is equal to 0. So, kung mapapansin nyo, yung nakuha natin quadratic equation, x squared minus 9x plus 14 is equal to 0, kamukha lang siya nung equation na nakuha natin kanina using the first method. So, let's have example number 2, again using method 1. Find the quadratic equation whose roots are negative 3 and 10. So, ang gagawin ulit natin, in the form of x minus a times x minus b is equal to 0. So, magiging x minus negative 3 times x minus 10 is equal to 0. Next, so x minus negative 3, that will become x plus 3 times x minus 10 is equal to 0. Now, applying FOIL method, so magiging ganito siya. Rewrite lang natin yung given equation. So, x times x, that is x squared, and then x times negative 10, that is negative 10x, 3 times x, 3x, finally, 3 times negative 10, negative 30, is equal to 0. And then, i-add natin yung negative 10x, tsaka 3x. So, our final answer, x squared minus 7x minus 30 is equal to 0. So, our obtained equation is written in standard form. So, using the second method, yung sum and products of the roots of quadratic equation, so x sub 1 plus x sub 2 is equal to negative b over a. So, that is negative 3 plus 10 is equal to 7. Okay, and then, i-attach natin yung negative. So, yung sum ng roots niya is negative 7, while the product naman, x sub 1 times x sub 2 is equal to c over a. So, multiplying negative 3 and positive 10, that is negative 30. Okay, next. So, our values of a, b, and c, a is 1, b is negative 7, and then c is negative 30. And then we write the equation ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. And then, isa-substitute lang natin yung mga values ng a, b, and c. So, yung a natin, 1, so x squared. And then, bx, that is negative 7x. And then, constant term, negative 30 is equal to 0. So our final answer is also x squared minus 7x minus 30 is equal to 0. So let's have example number 3. Find the quadratic equation whose roots are negative 6 and negative 4. So again, write natin sila in the form of x minus a times x minus b is equal to 0. So, and then x minus negative 6 times x minus negative 4 is equal to 0. So, yung rule natin sa subtraction of integers, kailangan nating palitan yung sign ng subtrahend. So, ang ating mga terms magiging x plus 6 tsaka x plus 4 is equal to 0. And then, using FOIL method, so x plus 6 times x plus 4 is equal to 0. And then, first term, x times x, x squared. And then, outer terms, x times 4, that is 4x. Inner terms, 6 times x, that is 6x. And then, final, yung last, 6 times 4, that is 24 is equal to 0. And then, we combine like terms. So, i-add natin yung 4x and 6x. So, our final answer, x squared plus 10x plus 24 is equal to 0. Next, again, using method 2, the sum and products of the roots of a quadratic equation. So, sum muna, x sub 1 plus x sub 2 is equal to negative b over a. Now, negative 6 plus negative 4, that is negative, tapos negative 6 plus negative 4, that is negative 10. So, negative negative magiging positive 10. So, yung sum ng roots natin, 10. And then, product naman, x sub 1 times x sub 2 is equal to c over a, that is negative 6 times negative 4. So, since pareho sila ng sign, negative times negative, that is positive 24. Now, the value of a is 1, b is 10, and then c is 24. So, the standard form of the quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So, substitute a, so magiging x squared, and then b, 10, that is 10x, and then c, 24, is equal to 0. Okay. So, sa paggamit ng method 1 and method 2, nasa sa inyo na kung ano yung gusto nyong gamitin. So, for me, since hindi ko siya tinuturo pa kasi hindi naman ako nag-handle ng grade 9, so sa akin, mas prefer ko yung method 1, yung paggamit ng FOIL method, kasi doon ako mas sanay. Anyway, gamitin nyo man yung second method, yung sum and product of the roots, wala naman din magiging problem. Same lang din yung equation na makukuha. So, for our last 4 examples, ang gagamitin ko na lang is yung method 1. Okay, so kasi mas madali siya kung ang mga roots natin ay mga fractions and then irrational roots. Okay, so kasi pag ano lang sila, pag number lang sila, yung whole numbers lang sila or integers lang sila, so mas mabilis na makuha yung equation. Like for example, find the quadratic equation whose roots are 1/2 and 5. So, use the form x minus a times x minus b is equal to 0. And then, substitute natin in place of a and b, 1/2, and then 5 is equal to 0. And then, since we cannot divide 1 by 2, so yung 2, ililipat natin doon sa tabi ng x. So, magiging 2x minus 1 times x minus 5 is equal to 0. Now, we can apply FOIL method. Okay, so 2x times x, that is 2x squared, and then 2x times negative 5, that is negative 10x, negative 1 times x, negative x, and then negative 1 times negative 5, that is positive 5, is equal to 0. And then we combine negative 10 and negative x. So our final answer, 2x squared minus 11x plus 5 is equal to 0. We have example number 5. Find the quadratic equation whose roots are 5 over 2 and negative 1/3. So again, x minus a times x minus b is equal to 0. And then x minus 5 over 2 and then x minus negative 1/3 is equal to 0. And then x minus 5 over 2 times x plus 1/3 is equal to 0. Since hindi naman natin pwedeng i-divide yung mga numerator ng yung 5 sa 2 and then 1 sa 3, so ililipat lang natin yung mga denominator sa tabi ng x. Okay. So kapag ang ating mga roots ay fraction, ganoon lang din ang gagawin. Okay. So ililipat lang natin kung ano man yung number, integer na denominator doon sa tabi ng x or kung ano man yung variable na ginamit. So that will become 2x minus 5 times 3x plus 1 is equal to 0. So and then applying FOIL method, first 2x times 3x, that is 6x squared, and then outer 2x times 1, that is 2x, inner negative 5 times 3x, that is negative 15x, and then last negative 5 times 1, that is negative 5, is equal to 0. So we combine 2x and negative 15x, so 2x minus 15x, that is negative 13x, and then 6x squared and then minus 5 is equal to 0. So our final answer is 6x squared minus 13x minus 5 is equal to 0. So for example number 6, we will use method 2. So yung sum and products of the quadratic equation. So x sub 1 plus x sub 2 is equal to negative b over a. So i-add lang natin 2 plus square root of 3 tsaka 2 minus square root of 3. So kapag pinag-add natin to, 2 plus 2, that is 4. And then square root of 3 minus square root of 3, that is 0. And then yung answer natin na 4, i-attach lang natin yung negative. Next, dun sa product naman, x sub 1 times x sub 2 is equal to c over a. So, multiply natin 2 plus square root of 3 times 2 minus square root of 3. So, as you can see, yung ating mga terms ay pareho lang. Pinagkaiba lang nila is yung sign. So, ang gagawin natin dito is multiply natin yung dalawang first term tsaka dalawang last term. So, 2 times 2, that is 4. And then, minus square root of 3 times square root of 3, that is square root of 9. So, the square root of 9 is 3. So, isusubtract natin 4 minus 3, that is 1. Now, the value of A is 1. The value of B is negative 4. And then the value of C is 1. Now, the standard form of the quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Substitute lang natin ngayon yung mga value ng a, b, and c. So, for a, 1 lang, so x squared. And then, for b, negative 4, magiging negative 4x. And then, for c, 1. So, our final answer is x squared minus 4x plus 1 is equal to 0. So, if we will be using method 1, ganun pa rin naman ang equation na makukuha. Hindi naman siya mag-iiba. So, for week 3, we'll have solving equation transformable to quadratic equations. So, meron kasing mga equation na kung titignan mo, hindi sila quadratic equation. Pero kapag may ginawa ka sa kanila, sinolve mo sila, matatransform sila into quadratic equations. Yun lang, maraming salamat.